I'm in a tangle, oh dear. So step one, I had a near knitting disaster. In my last video, I showed the unboxing of my Cardigang order of a knitting kit. So what they do is you go online and you purchase like the pattern that you want to make. And so I purchased the Jane Cardigan, so it looks like this. And you get everything that you need to knit this cardigan here. So you get all the wool, and actually what's good is if you're not like good at reading patterns, because they can be a bit confusing, has a QR code and it takes you to their website and it shows you step by step how to make everything. So if you feel a bit lost. And I did also join their Facebook group as well, where you can write in questions and things like that, and you get advice from other people who've been knitting or crocheting the same thing as you. So it comes in this groovy bag. I really like this because it's very, you know, just chuck it in the bag. It's great. And it comes with all the wool that you need. So I picked this color, this nice pink color, and it's nice, thick, chunky yarn, which makes it really easy to knit with. And then you get the needles with it as well, the knitting needles. I saw on this website, which was quite funny, they did an analogy of knitting is like skiing and crocheting is like snowboarding. Now, I'm actually a snowboarder, but I don't know, skiing's cool too. I don't want to discriminate. So I have started the process of making the cardigan. So step one is to cast on the stitches for your cardigan. So I believe the pattern has asked for 40. So I've started the process. So I'll continue going because I think I've only got a few here. This is how to actually cast on though. So you start off with a slip knot, and what's important when casting on with the long tail casting method is to actually leave a long tail, as in the name. So I'm just going to be doing a few, but you've got to judge it from how many stitches you're doing. But this is how I do a slip knot. So you get your wool, and essentially I push them together to create a loop like that, and then push that wool through the back, grab the needle and pull that through like that. Okay, and then to cast on, we want to hold the needle in our right hand, and then with our left hand wrap it around your thumb so it goes behind your thumb. Then you want to get that needle with the right hand and grab that wool there. So then you're putting a loop onto the needle. You're then going to wrap the yarn that's attached to the ball around the needle, and then with your thumb you want to lift it up and over, and you've created your stitch there. So the slip knot there, that kind of counted as the first one, and the one we just did, that's number 2. So I will show you again. So again, holding the needle in your right hand, then with your left hand put the wool over your thumb and wrap it round, stick your needle in with your right hand, and the full ball of wool, wrap it around and then over the needle. And again, this is your third cast on stitch. So again, needle in the right hand, go in as if you're knitting a stitch, and then wrap it round also like you're knitting, and then go over the top. And you do that for as many stitches as you need. But this is why it's important to leave a long tail as well, because this is getting shorter as we cast on more stitches. So again, needle in the right hand, go into that wool as if you're doing a knit stitch, wrap it round as if you're knitting, and essentially use your hand, your thumb, to knit that stitch to create a cast on stitch there. It is actually quite simple, but it does take practice. And there's no need to rush it, just go nice and slow. For the purpose of the tutorial, I'm just going to do 12 stitches there. And then you might still have some of that tail left. What I like to do actually is to tie up the tail a bit so you don't get confused with your working wool, which is the one attached to the yarn. Look at this, it actually looks really nice. So this was rib stitch and had to do 3 rows of that. To do rib stitch, we have to knit 1 stitch and then purl 1 stitch, knit 1 stitch and purl 1 stitch. So let's do this first row together because this is what the pattern I'm using has asked for. So to knit, we're going to go into that first stitch with the yarn, then wrap it around that back needle so that it sits over the top of that loop we've just done, and then go under that loop and push it off the needle like that. And then because our next stitch is purl, we want to make sure that we bring the yarn, the working yarn, forward like that. And then for the purl stitch, we go in behind the stitch and then wrap the yarn around and push it off as well. Then again, we're going to make sure to bring that yarn to the back because our next stitch is knit. And we're just going to knit that stitch, throw it off. The next stitch is going to be purl, so just make sure you bring that working yarn forward, go in from the back of your stitch and bring that needle forward, wrap the yarn around and then under and off the needle, and then move your yarn to the back for the knit stitch, and we're going to knit it, push the needle in behind the other needle, wrap the wool around and throw it off the needle. I think the most important thing is not to forget to bring the yarn forward after each stitch when you're doing rib stitch. That's probably the trickiest part. That's what my first row looks like. It always looks a little bit weird, but as you progress, it starts to take a bit more shape. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to do 2 more rows just to make it look like something. And so here we can see, starting our next row, that it's a knit. Okay, we're doing the same thing, knit, purl, and the good thing is it's a nice and easy now that you've got the hang of it. So knit, but still make sure that you bring that yarn in front before you do your purl stitch. Like so. That is the completed rib stitch. And I like what the instructions say next. It says, okay, that's the tough part done. Next we're going to do so and so many rows of stockinette stitch.
Stocking stitch.
Stocking stitch is made by alternating rows of knit stitch and purl stitch. Next step is to do stocking stitch for however many rows that the pattern says. So this means that my next row is all knit stitch, which is really nice and easy. Knitting all the way to the end of the row. So remember, for knit, we got the yarn behind and then we stick the needle in behind, wrap it round the back and under and off. I just finished the row of knit stitch, so that means this row will be purl. So just make sure that that yarn is forward so that you can purl, which means remember you go in front of the needle rather than behind. Wrap it round under and off again. And then again, you can see that that yarn is in front there. So this is stocking stitch, 1 full row knit, 1 full row purl. The most important thing here is to keep track of the number of rows. So whether you have a counter or you're writing it down, you just want to make sure that you keep track so that you're getting the right size. Okay, here's an update on the knitting. It's looking very nice. That's the one side and that is the reverse. And actually I thought I'd share an easy little knitting tip with you if you are getting into it. So I'm doing stocking stitch, which means you do 1 row knit and then you do 1 row purl, which is the type of knitting stitch that you do. And to know, so I've, gone away for a little while and I've come back to it. And to know what you're up to, I've been tracking my rows in terms of numbers, but also this looks like this. This is like the knit side. So this is how you know when to do a knit row. When you finished a row and it looks like this, that's when you do the knit stitch. And if it was to look like, and you know that because of the way that the wool sits. And if it didn't sit like this, if it was this size showing, it means you would do a purl row. This is the progress of my Jane cardigan from Cardigang. I think it's looking really nice. The colours come through really lovely, and I've actually completed all the rows for this section. So what that means is it's actually time to cast off the stitches. So I'm going to start that. And then after that, it says the next step is to do the panels for the front. So essentially you're recreating what we've done here on the back, but half the size. And then we've got the sleeves. So it is slowly coming together. I've really enjoyed doing it though. It's been such a fun activity. And I've just enjoyed the process of just sitting and knitting and like just solely focusing on the knitting. I haven't been watching TV at the same time. I haven't been doing anything. I've just completely focused on the knitting, and I've really enjoyed complete time out, not being on a screen, just enjoying the process of getting involved in a craft. Let's cast off. To cast off, you knit the first stitch as normal, like that. Okay, so we have 1 stitch over there. Then we actually knit again another stitch. And then what we want to do is, you can use this needle if you need be, but essentially what we're doing is lifting the stitch underneath. So the first stitch we just did, we want to lift that up and over the second stitch we just knitted, and actually lift it off the needle, and it's cast off. So then we continue this process. So we knit a stitch just as normal, and then that stitch on the bottom we lift up over the stitch we just knitted while keeping that one on the other needle. And there we go. That one is now cast off as well. We do that all the way. So again, knit, use your needle to lift the stitch underneath over the one we've just knit, off the needle and let go. And you do that all the way to the end for all the stitches. Okay, so for that last stitch, so this needle is now empty and we just have, so we have 1 lonesome stitch left on the needle, but what we actually did was I like to pull a loop a bit, let go there, leave a bit of a tail, cut, and pull through. And that's cast off. I did it! The back panel, yes! Actually looks pretty good, guys. I'm proud of myself, thanks to some last minute help from my mum at the end though. I had 1 stitch left to cast off and I dropped it and I was like, oh no! But all is okay. So moving on, I thought I should do an update on how my knitting is going, and it's going well. I'm actually onto the sleeves, which is cool. And actually, this is sleeve number 1, and once I finish sleeve number 2, then it's like up to putting it all together. But this row actually where we, what do? We knit 2 stitches together to reduce the amount of stitches that we have. So to actually like shape the cardigan sleeves. Yeah, so that makes sense. And you know what? I was having thoughts about this going, oh my gosh, it's not going to be long enough for the sleeve. But then I realized because I've got the other pieces to put together. So I was like, hold on, Chelsea, like you can knit, but you're no expert. Follow the pattern and just do what it says, and then you'll probably get the best outcome. So let's stick with that. So knitting 2 stitches at the same time. You stab it. We want to make sure we go through both, and then strangle it. Push it off a cliff. It's very brutal, but I think it worked. Okay. I had a near knitting disaster. So I was in the middle of casting off, just knitting away, like, and I had heaps of wool left. I was like, yeah, fine. But sometimes what happens with wool is there's like a cut in it, and I literally had, I think I had I had 8 stitches left to cast off still on this sleeve, and I completely ran out, and so I had to get my mum to the rescue, thank goodness. And so what I had to do was undo some of the stitches, put them back on the previous needle, then like start a new ball, like redo the yarn, and then I could cast off. So it was a bit of a save. But you know what is really exciting is I have finished all the knitting for this project. So I have the back panel, the 2 front panels, and my 2 sleeves. And so I'm sitting outside because I want some really good natural light for sewing it all up so that I can have the nice beautiful cardigan to wear this winter. Okay, so to get started, it says to put, so essentially what we're doing is we're sewing the back panel and the front panels together. And so it says put them right sides together, which I've done there. This is always the hardest part. Threading the darning needle. Okay, so I'm just going to start off going through a corner and then leaving an end. And then I'm going to go through the little bars all the way up. So this is the cast off edge, and then these are the rows. Essentially what we're doing is from one side to another following the little bars. So essentially a stitch. So in there and then to the opposite side. I want to go in there under both of those. And again to the opposite side. And then after a few stitches, that's when I like to give my ends a little tug, and then you get your invisible seam. I've gotten the hang of it, and it's looking right. Yay! Oh, it's so nice when it all starts to come together. Yay! Amazing. Come here. Come here. I've made some good progress on the Jane cardigan, and I've got one sleeve on, but I did have some difficulty with the sewing because part of the tutorial was showing, and it just looked different to how mine actually looked because of the way the cast on and cast off is. But I found a really good way to do it, and you get like the invisible seam, that mattress stitch style. And what you actually need to do, so you get your wool that you're gonna need, and then I've pinned my sleeve where it needs to go, so I've centered it, and then I've got safety pins to keep that together, and I've got right sides together. And then what I'm going to do is get untangled, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out about double the lengths of what's needed, maybe like double, and then another half. I'll just do a full just to be safe. And then what we're going to do, we're going to thread our darning needle, which I've lost somewhere. Oh dear. But anyway, there we go. And what you want to do actually is pull your yarn, your wool, halfway so that you have 2 full strands there. And then we're going to start in the center. So we're going to find a stitch here. And so the reason we start it in the center is so that you've got one lot to go to the right and one lot of yarn to go to the left, and it keeps it nice and even that way. And then I'll do a close-up now of how to actually do the stitch. Just finished the sleeves. So this side is completely sewn up. Oh, it looks so nice. And now I've just got to, so I've pinned here, and all I've got to do now is sew up this way. And the way I've been doing this one is actually the same stitch that I just showed you for doing the sleeves. I found that's been the easiest way to do it, and also the most seamless as well. So, and the inside looks good too, but like, who cares about the inside? It's about the outside. So it's definitely, it's getting there. You know what I think is the most satisfying part of this stitch is when you pull it and it all goes seamless. I love that bit. I did it. Besides the obvious weaving in the ends, I have finished my cardigan, and I'm really happy with how it's come up. It's really cute. This is it. This is the finished Cardigang Jane sweater, All the ends are weaved in, the puff sleeves look amazing, and it's ready to wear this winter season.
Yay!